And we shouldn't forget that we can get interactive. On Facebook, we have joined us on TV, and it is where we're streaming live, and we want you to always give us a lot more of your comments, because those comments will relate to you in the course of the program. Right now, Mama View Osuabwaje is at the forecourt of the fire station at the Makola Market, and it is where she will be speaking to the Deputy Director for Public Relations for the Ghana National Fire Service, Bill Anaglate, and we'll be looking at what the efforts of the Ghana National Fire Service have been over the period to prevent fires, but more importantly, what domestic consumers like you and I could do to prevent fires or handle inflammable materials like liquefied petroleum gas, as well as petrol and other inflammable material that are used in the home, in the offices, or let's say at an artisanal workshop. But we know that this is coming on the premise or the back of a disaster that was recorded at La here in Accra. And that very incident recorded a number of deaths as well as injuries to a number of people who not only were at the station, but also just in the adjoining precinct of the located area. This resulted in many of them being admitted at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital and the 37 Military Hospital. We'll have an expert, a burn surgeon from the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, joining us in the studio as we simultaneously also have that very conversation with the representative of the Ghana National Fire Service at the forecourt of the fire station at the Makola Market with Mama View Osuabwaje. We'll do all that very soon, but if you go on our interactive pages on Facebook, you find that we have a lot more of the messages coming in on Facebook, etc., and we're grateful for them. It's about the money moment, the AM show money moment that we started on the working day yesterday. Is just to appreciate a lot more of the issues of finances and how we can find ourselves in a better perspective by close of the year. We noticed that by the time December comes, we hadn't planned for January. And by the time January comes, we had already not put down plans for mid-year as well as the whole of the year. So we invited Uncle Ebo White and Mr. David Kofi Waku, who is a financial expert and owns an investment company as well as is an entrepreneur. And he taught us what financial literacy should be and how we will be in a position to manage our finances. And so we started this putting 10 Ghana cedis, Mamavi and I, in what we call a susu box or a money or a piggy bank here in the studio. So we'll do that every morning. And so far we have a more entry God's plan. Says, Joy, I love you, but I'm slightly disappointed in you. You broadcast the news on a lost person, but you never show his picture. But you want us to help the family find the person. Well, so we'll do that. We'll fix that. I'm sure you're talking about that missing person, the missing journalist in Kumasi. Rain Jonah, my box is highly classified. My girlfriend knows it's there, but she's not aware it contains money, since there are other things in it. I'll therefore be exposing myself and my box if I post pictures of it here or anywhere. I see. This small box carrying the contributions of two big people. I don't know what sort of contributions we were looking for. Napoleon Luchu says, I want to buy a Range Rover this year, so I'm on my way going to get one susu box and start saving. The essence of you getting a susu box is not to say that this should be the only savings that you should do, because we want you, aside the other investments and the fixed deposits instruments that you tend to buy, also just cultivate, it's just a semblance or a symbol of it. Cultivate the culture and make sure that you're in a position to say that this is what I want to do, and I'm going to follow through with other disciplines in my life as far as my finances are concerned. And we hope that you will appreciate all this. We also have Leonard Grant. Mine is in a piggy bank, and the ones that's when you break it, and the ones that's when you break it, you can't put it back together. Okay, I get your point. A champong Martin Despa. It's unfortunate. Rural Bank staff do come to my office daily to collect the susu. Special good morning to Madam Aisha Ibrahim. Osikeni Kojo the second. I'm back. I'm going to look for one. Oh, Osikeni. Osikeni, you are not going to look for one. Please, may I ask if you are couples? No, we're not. Mama V is married. And I'm married too. Daniel Apia Dankwa, State of the Nation, a strictly political platform on WhatsApp where we discuss. Okay, we can't join that platform, unfortunately. Unkupoe Thompson Ntege, I will send a picture of my own. It helped me last year. That'll be great. My box is made of gold worth 30,000 Ghana cedis, and I've put 5 pesos inside. I see. But that is where we take a break. When we come back, we'll be having great conversations. And the great conversation will be with Mustafa Hamid. And Mustafa Hamid, we know, is a spokesperson for Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the president-elect of the New Patriotic Party, but also lecturer with the University of Cape Coast. And he is also an Islamic scholar. Well, we'll be having those great insights into not his life, but the president-elect's camp. We'll be looking at the issues of the transition, the speculated appointments, etc. But what really the new government is looking forward to, and we know that we'll bring to you live crossover sessions of the swearing-in ceremony from the Independence Square here in Accra on Saturday, live on this very station, as well as I'm sure Joy FM as well, where we will bring you the sight and sound of the ground, the Independence Square, and also what the main event will be, and then we'll do the within the period as well as the post-event analysis of the whole event. So please, this is the channel to be. We're taking a break. When we come back, the conversation with Mustafa Hamid of the NPP. On many of the social as well as the public platforms that you belong to, great conversations are ongoing about the transition process. But even before then, the win of the New Patriotic Party to become or form the new government from January 7, 2017. But we know that very date is just this very Saturday, in which we're going to bring you a live broadcast of the event, the swearing-in ceremony of the president-elect, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and his vice. Will be taking place at the forecourt of the Independence Square. We've brought you live on this very channel, as well as on Joy FM and our allied stations. We'll bring you great analysis before, during the event, and thereafter. But we'll also bring you the sight and sound of the main event and from the Independence Square. But within the period or prior to that period, we're having visitations to the president-elect, and then also him also undertaking a thank you tour and the transition process that is ongoing. But beside all that, there are always the speculations in the media, the social media platforms, etc., about who gets to occupy which position, etc. But we have one person in the studio to talk to us about these and a number of a plethora of issues. And Mustafa Hamid is here. He is a spokesperson for the president-elect, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. I don't know whether you still hold that position. You still hold that position, right? Okay. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
All right. Now, it's been a busy period since the formation of the transition team, etc. How has it been for you, especially, and the president-elect and his vice?
Well, it's been good morning to your viewers. It's been very, very hectic. I'm sure some of your reporters have been to the houses of both the incoming vice president and the president-elect. And the place is to say that they are a beehive of activity is an understatement. The places are jam-packed with human beings from all walks of life who are seeking to shake hands with them and congratulate them, some to tell them one or two things, give pieces of advice, suggestions, etc., etc. So there's enormous pressure, sometimes even to be able to excuse yourself to eat. I mean, it's a problem for them. But in all that, you have to understand that it's part of the victory process. You know, there's a saying that success has many friends, you know. So we understand that pressure, and we are trying to manage it, you know, so that it doesn't bring discomfort either to the people who have come to see them or to themselves. Because people travel all the way from Hameli in the Upper West and say that they want to come and congratulate the president-elect. How are you supposed to say that they cannot do so, or to send them away back to Hameli or whatever? So under the constraint, you are forced basically, you know, to accommodate everybody and ensure that everybody goes away satisfied.
At the end of the day, we know that transition process is taking place. Has it ended?
No. According to the transition law, the transition process effectively terminates on the 6th of February. I mean, 4 weeks after the inauguration. That's where the transition committees are dissolved and are no more and would no more have legal status. But between now and then, even after the handing over, if there are nitty-gritties, issues to be trashed, as they say, T's to be crossed and I's to be dotted, you know, they would continue to be dotted until the 6th of February.
The last time we had a transition was in 2009, or let's say after the election in 2008 and also 2009. We saw people who were occupying positions in the NPP administration, Kufuor administration then, occupying positions for at least 3 months. Is it going to happen this time around too?
Well, frankly, I haven't asked the president-elect what his opinion is. But in terms of what you are referring to, President Mills only said that district chief executives, you know, could hold on for a while longer. I don't now remember at what point, you know, they were asked to go off. But for ministries, normally the practice is that at midnight of 6th January, ministers vacate their offices and then hand over the ministries to the chief directors, and they hold forth for the ministries until substantive ministers are appointed. But as to what he will do with district chief executives, I haven't discussed that with him. This is the second time this question has come up this morning. So in the course of the day, when I see him, I would ask him specifically so I can continue to answer that question from tomorrow.
Very interesting as it is. But already we know that the NPP is a very big political party, has a pedigree because it's been in government before. And so the expectation is huge. And also based on what you campaigned on, the expectation is that you have the people in place. The list being speculated on social as well as mainstream media, are they true?
No, they are not true. They are not true because they do not emanate from our office. They do not emanate from the president-elect. What is happening is that people have begun speculating based on what I will admit are perhaps intelligent guesses. For example, you have in the list that I have seen on social media, some of the list, for example, you have somebody like the Honorable Dominic Nitiwul being said to be Minister for Defense, for example. You have somebody like the Honorable Isaac Esiama, they say he's going to be Minister for Sports. Why? Because these are people who were, and for example, Honorable Dr. Akoto Osei, I mean the MP for Kwadaso, they say he's going to be Minister for Agri. Okay. Now, I call these intelligent guesses, for example, because these are people who were minority spokespersons in Parliament for these areas. Are you following me?
I'm following.
For example, for several years, the Honorable Isaac Esiama has been speaking for our part.
So you're saying that if somebody is speculating that it's just a logical...
Yes, so they are making a logical inference, okay, from opposition position, you know, and transferring that position basically to a position in government, which will translate to minister. In Britain, you know, they call them shadow ministers, exactly. So because they were basically... So shadow minister for sports will become minister for sports, shadow minister for defense will become minister for defense.
Could become.
Or could, yeah, that's what the social media is saying, that they will become. But the point I'm making is that they are intelligent guesses and they are not grounded in fact. When the list is finally released by the president, at that time, I'm sure he would be president before he would release the list, some of those would be correct, some would be wrong. And so if I say that they are totally based on falsehood, I would not be exactly correct. They are based on intelligent guesses, but they do not emanate as a matter of fact from the office of the president.
You're saying some of the names could find themselves being on the final list?
Oh, of course.
Or the official announced list?
Oh, of course, of course. For example, apart from Professor Frimpong Boateng and the Honorable Alan Tremantin, two people he himself has openly already declared would occupy certain portfolios. There are people that he has also said, this fellow would occupy a place in my government. This fellow would occupy a place in my government. For example, when he went to the Nairi in Nalirgu, he told the Nairi that your daughter, Haji Alima, would play a prominent role in my government. The other day, when Konkomba chiefs came to see him in the house, he said to them that their son, Dominic Nituwo, will play a prominent role. So I am definitely sure that these names would be in the list. But as to what specific portfolios they would be assigned to is a matter of guess.
From a former member of parliament for Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency, somebody who occupied a ministerial position in the Kufuor administration as well, I think is playing a role in the transition team.
Yes.
From Opari.
Yes.
You can't say that if she's said to be speculated to be chief of staff, it's just mere speculation. Because she seems to have the right attributes, doesn't she?
Yes. You see, what happened was that the transition law provides for certain ministers in government to be automatic members of the transition team, and says that the incoming government should select people who would match their portfolio to sit with them. So chief of staff from here, minister for defense here, let's say shadow minister for defense there. You see, so the president-elect chose Fremont Parry, Dominic Nitiwo, the Honorable Ambrose Derry, Haji Alima Mahama, the Honorable Gloria Akufu, you know, as chief of staff, attorney general, defense, interior, for the purposes of the transition. And so people are saying, okay, so if these are the people that he has chosen for these specific positions,
portfolios,
or portfolios for the transition process, we are assuming that they would play those roles.
You find yourself on the list too. Minister of Information. It shouldn't be a bad position, should it?
Well, it shouldn't be. It's definitely a powerful position. I mean, somebody who would be the voice of government and the voice of the president by any stretch of imagination is a powerful position. But I don't know that for a fact.
And you do a very good job when you are the Minister of Information too. I think so.
Well, I pray so, that if it does happen, if indeed the speculation is true, but I don't know for a fact whether it's true. Again, in my case, intelligent guess again, because I've been speaking for Nanado for 10 years. Okay, so as a spokesperson for 10 years, people are assuming that no, then he must be very comfortable with this fellow and would want to carry him into government.
Aren't you comfortable with the position, Information Minister? Sounds right in my ears.
It is, except that it's a very daunting responsibility to be a public relations manager for an entire government. It's a different matter if you are PRO for a company of 30 employees and so on. You are basically PRO for 24 million people. You are the voice of government, voice of president. That's a very enormous responsibility. And I don't know whether he wants these my tiny shoulders to carry that responsibility.
If you're given that responsibility, would you take it?
I would.
All right. But you know, on social media too, there seem to be a bunch of NPP middle-level grassroots people who seem to have worked tirelessly for the party, who seem not also happy with this speculated list. I don't know whether that has come to your attention.
Yes.
I can mention some names if you want me to.
Please do.
It's okay.
You know, what it is that not all party people would ever agree with any appointment 100%. It doesn't exist anywhere on the face of the earth that a president names his appointees and everybody in a political party concurs. It has never happened and would never happen. For example, somebody sent me a screenshot of a conversation on another NPP platform, WhatsApp platform, on which I am not. That somebody said on the platform, Mustafa Hamid is a very good communicator. He's been communicating and fighting for us for the past 10 years in opposition. But I think we should leave him there. We shouldn't carry him to government, because government communication is different from opposition communication, which basically suggests that Mustafa is good only for opposition. Mustafa is not good for government. Well, you cannot begrudge that view. I'm citing this example to show that no matter who you are inside the party, and no matter what job you have done for the president, people would always disagree with certain positions, and so that is normal. People are entitled to their views, but you see,
do you know Samuel Brian Boabing?
Yes, he's one of our popular.
He's one of them. You know Nana Hesi
media.
Ojiri?
Very well.
Okay.
Yes, but the point
they worked tirelessly in the campaign.
Yes, they did. Oh, they did. They did. They did. You see, I recognize the names straightforward. They do. They did. Now, the point I'm making to you is that in a political party, there are various roles that people play in a political party. Some of those roles are upfront. They are frontline roles. For example, spokesperson for a presidential candidate. You are required to be on radio, on TV, on platforms. But there are also people who play backroom roles, who don't. For example, there are people who fund the campaign. There are people who put fuel in the president's car. I will not even know those people. I just wake up in the morning and I come and the president says we are going to Sekendi. How he got his money to buy the fuel that is paying my hotel bills and feeding me, I don't even know. So it will be wrong for me if he makes an appointment for me to come and say, because this fellow was not on radio with me or on TV with me, therefore he didn't contribute to the victory, and therefore I am criticizing that appointment.
Mr. Mustafa Hamid,
yes.
That phenomenon in which that whoever, whether communicates through mass media and by way or inference, means that has contributed to the campaign, or vice versa, maybe may have undertaken some event activity within the period of the electioneering, seems to suggest or think that he needs to be given a position. Where do you think it's coming from in our body politic?
Well, it is because politics, not just in this part of the world, but all over the world, it's equated to war, basically. They call it war without bloodshed. And when you go to war and you win, there are what we call spoils of war. Okay, there are spoils of war. There are spoils to be shared. And political party positions, you know, in party politics are basically like spoils of war. And so when it comes to sharing the spoils, these disagreements occur as to who should have what and who should have what. Definitely, party political position, like Akufo-Addo said, is not an avenue for enrichment, for people to enrich themselves. It's an avenue for public service. So it is not also correct for us to assume that people who are clamoring for positions are doing so for selfish motives. There are people who have served their nation in some capacities and at a point think that I should transition to another capacity. For example, there are accomplished business executives. For example, the Honorable, well, now Honorable George Anda. Everybody knows in this country is an accomplished marketer of no mean pedigree, okay? So at a point, he decided, I've seen all that needs to be seen in the corporate world. I want to do politics. For a fulfilled person like that, for a successful human being like that, you cannot say that if he wants to be minister, he wants to be minister for the sake of what he will get. He's a satisfied man by all standards, and I know that for a fact. Are you following me? So it's because people want different experiences in life. So it is normal as far as I'm concerned.
His name has been appearing on the list, the speculated list, George Anda.
As what? I don't know. I haven't seen
You
that.
haven't cited any?
Yes. But of course, if I were a president, George Anda is somebody that I would gladly appoint into my government to help.
So Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo may consider George Anda and people of his kind?
Well, I don't know whether the president would reason with me or would think what I'm thinking and the way that I am thinking.
Over the last week, we've noticed that the president-elect has been talking about the new region. Is it the northwestern region?
Yes, the northern part of the western region. Yes,
but there's been some controversy, especially erupting in the media, about when he said that new region would take effect. From the last of his comments, it's 2018, but within the electioneering, there were media and varied reports that were indicating that it should have been kickstarted the first year. I don't know whether it's come to your attention as well.
No, if anybody thought that he meant that immediately he came into office, he was going to create that new region, the fellow would have been ignorant of the laws of our country. The laws of our country do not operate on the basis of presidential whims. Okay, they operate on the basis of procedure. And therefore, there's a procedure that is enshrined in the Constitution for how regional boundaries can be altered and redone and so on. I am not exactly conversant, because I'm not a law person, with the exact procedural arrangements, you know, that have to be put in place. But it has to go through Parliament and et cetera, before it can become law. And so, therefore, I don't see how anybody could have assumed that it is something that we're going to do immediately. No.
Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo says the Zongo, what is it, the Zongo Development Fund?
Yeah.
It will be part of the first budget.
Yes. Of course. As for those budgetary promises, you have no reason to defer them. Okay, by budgetary promises or solutions, I mean, for example, Zongo Development Fund. For example, the promise to restore allowances of nurses, tradies, and so on. These are budgetary matters. These are matters that you budget for in the course of the year. So if we have an opportunity to do the 2017 budget, I mean, what reason would we have for not establishing these funds? Are you following me? So for those solutions that are purely budgetary, certainly in our first budget, we are going to fulfill those, if you want, promises. Are you following me? Or in fact, bring those solutions into being, you know, for the governance process to take off immediately. But there are certain other solutions that cannot be done, like the example that we just gave about the one, about the northern part of the western region. It's not something that is within your power even to do immediately. You just don't have the power unless you are going to be a lawless president. And I don't think that Nana Addo.
We have a number of Zongos. At least in every community in Ghana, there's a Muslim community, a Zongo. So in what shape and form would a fund be?
Well, again, we would be patient and leave that to the budget to give us details. But what I know for sure is that it is a fund that is meant to bridge the development gap, you know, between Zongos and inner cities, you know, and other, if you want, habitats around the country. Because it is not correct to go into our major cities and find that there are certain enclaves within these major cities that are lagging far behind in terms of social amenities, in terms of human development, and et cetera, et cetera. So Nana Addo, in the course of the campaign, has been proffering solutions that are meant to bridge the gaps, you know, between people who, for whatever reason, have a higher level of human development than others. So I know, broadly speaking, the work that the Zongo Development Fund is meant to do. But I guess that after the budget is read and it is established, you know, the nitty-gritties as to fund management and specifics and so on would be unveiled.
If you monitor news reports and also the social media postings of pro-NDC, perhaps grassroots people or communicators, etc., there seems to be a certain apprehension that they could have some of their officials jailed. Is there any thought of witch hunting on the part of the president-elect government?
No, that's not our preoccupation. Our preoccupation would be to immediately get to work, put our shoulders to the wheel, and begin to resolve some of the challenges and difficulties that this country has. He said, of course, in the course of the campaign, and it's a manifesto promise, that we will establish the office of an independent prosecutor whose business would be to be giving a free rein to be able to, part of the mandate being fight corruption and so on. So if the independent prosecutor in doing his work discovers that there are certain people who dipped their hands into the public purse for their own benefit rather than for the benefit of the public, and therefore would be taken through the due process of law, I think that it's a normal part of a governance system anywhere and everywhere in the world, and would not amount to witch hunting.
So people could be jailed?
I don't know about jailing. I don't know about jailing. It's not automatic that taking people through due process necessarily terminates in a jail sentence. No, it's not true. So I just know that even for us, it's not even for NDC people. Nanado has sounded a warning to those of us who may find our way into his government, that his government is not a place for making money, that if you want to make money, go to the private sector. I would assume that he means that if you were part of his government and you dipped your hands into public coffers, that the process of law would take place. I don't know whether that will terminate into a jail term. If it does, so be it.
I see. So far, are you happy with the transition process? And if you can tell us some of the things you've been seeing in the books,
well,
that you can share publicly. I'm sure everything is public.
Yes, I mean, for what is in the books, there's not much to quarrel about.
No anomalies so far?
I'm not sure those anomalies are even things that you would even find in handing over notes. Are you following? Handing over notes are basically to tell you, for example, the staff strength of the ministry, who is doing what, the major projects that the ministry undertook in these last years, where those projects are at the moment, and suggestions as to how the incoming government should take those projects, etc., etc. The financial strength of perhaps the ministry, its bank account, etc. That's where that's what a handing over note will give you, okay? But as to whether in the execution of the projects that the handing over notes say were executed, whether there were, if you want, sidestepping of procedure, or there was wrongdoing in the award of contracts, I'm not sure that is something that you can see in handing over notes, except when you get into the ministry. And I'm sure that's why the law makes for the transition process to continue until 6th of February, so that by that time we would be in government, and if there are questions to be asked, we will still have the opportunity to ask them before the process finally terminates on the 6th of February.
I see. Now, we have to end, and we know that the event will be taking place on Saturday. Is your team also part of the preparatory activities?
Yes, for every committee that was set up for this process, it is made up of the outgoing government, members of the outgoing government, and members of the incoming government. So the inauguration committee has members from our side and members from the outgoing government side. This afternoon at about 3 p.m., the inauguration committee would hold a press conference at the International Conference Center to let Ghanaians know where the arrangements are so far in preparation for Saturday. So I'm sure your reporters would be there, and therefore you would get to know what the details are.
Thank you very much.
I'm very grateful.
The speculated incoming information minister.
I pray so.
Thank you very much. Mustafa Hamid is a spokesperson for Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He's the president-elect of the Republic of Ghana. On Saturday, there will be a swearing-in ceremony that will be taking place at the forecourt of the Independence Square here in Accra. And this is your channel. We're going to bring you the pre-discussion activities as well as the during and post-discussion activities, all here on this channel as well as on Joy FM. Well, where else would you be than here?